I really have nothing to talk about, so I'm just gonna talk about the recent death battle that happened. Yeah, we're gonna go on a bit of a tangent here, talking about some, I guess, somewhat childish behavior, but to be honest, I always had like a secret love for Death Battle. I did always like the animations, and especially this one, which is Metal Sonic versus Cell. And if any of you are Dragon Ball fans and Sonic fans, you know that Dragon Ball and Sonic do not go like bread and butter. That's like a recipe for disaster because Sonic was based on Dragon Ball and yada yada yada. But the actual death battle itself was really good. I enjoyed watching it. The animation was absolutely spectacular. Besides the whole point of everyone arguing behind it, just shove that to the side. Look at the light at the end of the tunnel. The animation was just beautiful. I think this is probably the best animation death battle has ever done. I think it's just a great animation in total. It's probably better than any like blockbuster film or any just film in general that I've seen in the past year or so. Now, it's created a kind of a public scandal, talking like Arthur Burling right now from Inspector Ghoul, across the internet, because a lot of people are just talking about this, saying, oh, Cell should have won, or Metal Sonic's a fraud. Like, what, a Sonic character? This is. No, this is ruined my Dragon Ball fanfiction. Oh my goodness. And everyone's just going livid over this. And I say livid like it's some sort of like crazy apocalyptic event when it's just really just a bunch of like incels fighting over each other. But I thought I decided to step in here as a fellow Sonic fan myself. And to those who are actually like full on taking this seriously, like the ratings of Breaking Bad and Game of Thrones, I tip my hat to you because this is just absolute stupid behavior. This is like the equivalent of people robbing Pokemon cards. Now let's actually get into like the nit and grit of all this, the nuts and bolts. I do think it was a fair fight. I think it was perfectly valid. There was absolutely nothing wrong with it. And as a Sonic fan, as I said before, I've seen Sonic lose like 50 times to Death Battle, and I think, most of them are pretty unjustified, like Sonic and Mario. Talk about Plumber being like outerverse or multiversal. Clearly hasn't been up against Thinkerer. But Sonic, obviously, Sonic's my go. He's fought Eldritch Gods in Sonic Unleashed. He's fought God knows who else. Speaking of which, he has fought like 50 gods in just base and not and early on, I think he's pretty susceptible to victory. And the whole point of Metal Sonic was he's a one-to-one clone of Sonic. So whatever Sonic can do, Metal Sonic can do pretty much. Except Metal's got a little bit of a little pixie dust sprinkled onto him. He has a few extra abilities, which is just his main ability being copying, which is kind of the whole reason Death Battle did this. Death Battle kind of just pair up two characters with similar traits, powers, and just fight to the death in a mosh pit. And Metal Sonic and Cell are pretty similar with the powers. I haven't watched Dragon Ball, but I know I guess a decent amount of it. No, I'm not LARPing. I just choose not to watch it. Yeah, but if I remember, Perfect Cell, or just Cell in general, is basically just a copycat as well. All he does is he like sucks the life out of people and he can just copy his abilities like that, I think. Or maybe he does something else, I'm not really 100% sure. You guys can correct me in the comments, or whatever comments I have. But Metal Sonic can also do that. If anything, he's better. He can just look at people and just copy them at will, unconsensually as well, which is just like the added bonus. And what some people just absolutely forget is how ridiculous Sonic characters are. The Sonic verse has like the most weakest characters, like I don't know, Amy Rose having like multiversal powers, but the Sonic verse is not to be messed with. It's a force to be reckoned with, and I think it was totally fair because Metal Sonic he's a character that just keeps on coming. Like he hasn't actually been like abandoned or anything like that. The thing is, Cell is I'm pretty sure the last time he was actually appeared was like in the 90s, and nothing's happened since then. I'm sure if it was the Cell saga were to continue now, he'd probably be like fucking like godsend, like omniversal, like probably would be the Thinker for all we know, and Reverse Flash. Yeah, but the real reason people actually just hate it is because they just can't accept the Sonic character winning, and I'm not really that kind of guy to like get into the whole my character beats your character kind of shenanigans, but stuff like this, I did get a little ounce of happiness when I saw Metal Sonic do that final blow. I'm assuming you guys have seen the video. I mean, it's all over the place. I've seen like 50 edits on it. But yeah, Perfect Cell is, I mean, he's kind of a fraud to be honest. Like, I mean, it is kind of a Hydra Baby versus Missile in a way. Now, I'm not really gonna get into like the whole power scaling thing. I think you can watch another video on that. I'm not really a power scaler. I mean, maybe in the future I will do something like that on like a live stream or whatever. But it's not really my cup of tea right now. People just also hate the fact that Metal Sonic needed the Chaos Emeralds or he's just too overpowered. What the hell? He can do 50 things at once. Where was this in the Eggman vs. Bowser fight? Your death battle. And they're just storming outside with their pitchforks and fire and cocktails. But I mean, first of all, the Eggman vs. Bowser fight, that's just, Eggman vs. Bowser. It's not Eggman and Metal Sonic vs. Bowser, it's strictly them two. Second of all, I think, they're susceptible to feedback as well. They listened as well. Metal Sonic is actually pretty powerful if you think about it. I think he beats a lot of people. I think he beats the whole Dragon Ball verse for all I know, but I mean, I could be wrong about that. I might be hung up on a cross now for that. But yeah, Metal Sonic as a whole is a pretty overpowered character. You just look at people and just copy them at will, and he can transform into like 50 other things as well. So I mean, it's pretty fair if you think about it, you know. And well, I mean, that's kind of all I really have to say on that topic. There's not really anything else I really want to delve into and get into like the meat of it. I'm gonna try my absolute hardest and not try and like repeat myself half the time because I think I have speech impediment. But overall, I don't think you should be fighting over this. I think it's perfectly fine. No, it's just kind of like a repeated thing in the internet where like my character beats your character, and if my character ever loses to your character, I'm just gonna repeatedly harass you. I don't think that's. I mean, it's not really ideal, I guess. But like, you know, boys be boys, whatever, something like that. But overall, do I think it's a fair fight? Yeah, really, I do. I think it's probably the most fairest fight they've ever done. I think that the research behind both the characters are pretty good. If you've seen the video, I think they explain both of them really well. They didn't actually leave any like missing details out. Maybe the fact that Metal Sonic is like omniverse or something like that. They didn't go into that kind of craziness, saying that Cell doesn't get this power because of that. Actually, no, there is something that just crossed my mind. Cell Max, which I think is a completely different character. So you know, completely rule that out. That's just a 2v1 at that point. So there's not really any point for that. You know, it's Perfect Cell versus Metal Sonic, not Cell Max versus Metal Sonic. With that logic, we can bring Archie Sonic into the case. And yeah, that's all I really have to say.